So I was just inspired by, like, just to talk to you guys about the state of the economy 3 months after the dreaded pandemic, right? Or into, better said, the pandemic.
Mm.
But I came across a story that said that Walmart is going to, they're pushing to, I think they're going to test it out in one store or a couple of stores where they're going to just go fully automated with the cashiers.
There was always a danger of this pushing that, right? Yeah, I think you brought it up before.
Exactly.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
I feel that this pandemic has really just accelerated this whole plan for automation and really incentivized all of these companies. Amazon has already been working on these things, and they're definitely going to push for it more now, especially when you had all of these protests that were coming from the workers trying to unionize and all that. And then, like I said, so Walmart, they said that they're going to test it out in either one or a few stores. And that if it works out well, then they're going to do it in all their stores. And you got to think about Walmart is the biggest employer in the United States. That is very dangerous
Oh,
news.
that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Andrew Yang. I mean, automation, that's the trend that's happening, whether, it's not in itself, it's not good or bad. It's just something that's happening. Um, and yeah, people losing their jobs is bad, but I think in the bigger picture, it's an argument for that, for UBI. I mean, because what's happening is that,
I was gonna say
I
that.
mean, if people could work 20
Yeah.
hours a week and have machines do the work the rest of the week, that such a bad thing that people have more time to actually enjoy
Yeah.
life or whatever? If we can move towards a post-job economy where people don't have to work 3 jobs to survive, maybe we can construe that as a positive thing too if it's done right. Obviously, people losing their jobs at Walmart, that's that's a negative thing, especially
But
in the short term.
but the thing is, I mean, the regarding UBI, the good thing about that is that most of those Walmart jobs are essentially supplemented by some kind of assistance anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's not you're taking a job that's like a whole bunch of jobs that are where people are making 50 grand and really self-sufficient and paying their own way. You're talking about jobs where they're being horrifically underpaid, and they're probably on some kind of like food assistance or
Right.
medical assistance anyway.
Well, there was
So
that story
UBI, so UBI in that case is like, well, this might really just make the case for UBI, which might overall have quite a beneficial effect for the country.
I mean, Walmart was intentionally hiring. This came out, whatever that story, maybe it was 5 years ago. Walmart was intentionally hiring people who were on public assistance, right? So they could, or they had health insurance, some other, through
Sure.
Medicaid or whatever that, that they could avoid having to, whatever they could
Yeah.
hire part-time workers and not pay those benefits. But yeah, I think UBI is like, imagine like 2 years ago, that was like a crazy idea. No one really took it seriously.
Yeah.
And since Andrew Yang and Tulsi has brought it up, and then, Trump is doing it, talking about even Republicans are talking about these payments. So things have changed a lot in a couple of years. So it's not really beyond the realm of possibility that we could be talking about some kind of regular universal basic income in a couple,
I think
couple of years.
the trajectory of UBI is kind of the same as Medicare for all in how quickly I think it's been adopted in the consciousness of American voters. Even though the one party or two parties, however you consider it, the Republicans and Dems are both going to push back on it because it threatens profits of their corporate overlords.
Yeah, and they'll say it threatens
But
freedom, right?
but yeah, that's what they'll say. Yeah, but people I know now that would have thought that was completely crazy even a few years ago. Both those ideas now, and even free state college always kind of made sense. I think the idea of
Right.
having community college and state colleges be so low cost that anyone basically can get in, can pay it. But at Medicare for all and UBI were just like fringe not that long ago, and just like it's amazing how quickly And maybe that tells you how much people are really hurting out there. Maybe that's a great indicator of that people are like, yeah, we need something. Throw us
Well,
a
I think
rope,
it's a
right?
way of achieving justice, in a more libertarian way. Like give people the means to decide how they're going to use that money, right? So instead of the state providing subsidized clothing or subsidized
Yeah,
food like you had in the former Soviet Union, you give people money and let them choose how they're going to spend it. And there's still some freedom in that, so people can they can go and just blow it all at the casino or whatever, or they can actually plan and spend it on something they really need. You give people that freedom, but it's still recognizing that a lot of the wealth now is concentrated. Is first of all, it's being produced through automation, and it's being
right.
and it's if you just let capitalism go rampant, it's where you have more and more concentration at the top, because like with the Uber phenomenon, the drivers don't make very much money, but at the top they make a lot of money because the business model, it all kind of um, uh, uh, trickles up to the top.
Right.
So
And
that's the model.
even more so when they're all robot cars.
Yeah, right. So it's heading in that direction. So ultimately, you're not
Yeah,
going to have any physical drivers at all.
right.
And so you see that as, oh, these people are going to lose their job. That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is, well, if we could actually take that wealth and let the person at the top, yeah, let them keep some money for recognition of what they've done, but
Right.
they can't be, they can't be like Jeff Bezos, be a trillionaire. That's just obscene. How much wealth do you actually need? And like
Yeah,
to say,
I know.
put some limits on that, either through a wealth tax or income tax.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, at like 100 million, like just 100% taxation, basically. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, I mean that's
it's
what you
how
had
could you
under
ever? Yeah,
you had that under Eisenhower. In
yeah,
in 19 whatever the late 50s, the top nominal rate was 92%. So that didn't mean they took away 92% of your money. It meant above a certain, whatever it was, $10 million, you paid 92% of every dollar you made over $10 million. And that, to
yeah,
me, however that works, that means the government, okay, has to take that money back and redistributes it, or we have some kind of mechanism uh, to recognize that the wealth, you what you actually make in terms of money doesn't necessarily reflect what you actually earn or the value that you're providing to society. I mean, there's a correlation, but there's not a one-to-one correspondence. I hate it when I hear people like, Jeff Bezos, well, I worked really hard, therefore I deserve to be a trillionaire. Not that he said that, I'm just, speculating, but
yeah.
the idea is that, there has to be some kind of, you can't have it where one person owns more wealth than like a huge swath of the population.
Right. Yeah.
It
I mean,
just doesn't make it.
even these, tech billionaires were like that. At some point, okay, they wrote a really good program. Okay, it was wonderful, and then they provided some organization. At some point, like all these other people are just generating wealth for them. And the stock market and all that. It's pretty artificial,
Well,
and not really that indicative necessarily of their talents.
So I, I am also not one that's like for having people work these menial jobs, because obviously I think that it would be more meaningful for people to be able to do something that they actually like to do rather than being into forced labor, because that's the only way that they can survive, right?
Sure.
So I appreciate the idea of the UBI. The two things that I mean, obviously there are lots of arguments for and against UBI, but for me, one thing that's kind of iffy is that Yang has talked about that we should be getting paid for our data, like big tech should be, paying us for our data. And I don't know if I like that so
No,
much,
I do not. No, that's no good. Yeah.
Like I don't even like that they track all the data that they do now. And I understand that he's pretty much just looking at it as like, well, they already do it, so why not just get paid for it?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I would rather them not be
Right.
tracking our data, and I think that would work a lot better, right?
Yeah.
I think the other big issue that I have with UBI, and I feel like maybe a lot of maybe this is like the libertarian way of looking at it, but we've already seen with like the situation right now, post or in pandemic mode, right, where we've seen what the government is willing to do for us. Okay. So we saw how they have been fleecing us, right? How they immediately, like, it's still a question of if we're going to get another $1,200 stimulus check. Okay. And everybody's freaking out, being all, hurraying over here because Trump said that, oh yeah, we're definitely going to get another one. Meanwhile, it already passed. The new act already passed in the House, and it's just sitting in the Senate, right? And they're not doing that. But what was the first order of business for them was to bail out these big companies. Okay.
Oh, number one, absolutely, yeah.
We've already seen that the government does not have our best interest, as in the people.
Absolutely.
It is not at the forefront of what's important for our government, right? Because if it were, then what would have happened, instead of them bailing out all these companies, what they would have done is that they either would have, obviously done a moratorium on all sort of payments, right? Or they would have paid these debts for whatever period of time, because then the American people wouldn't be, after 4 months, of having this moratorium on evictions and on foreclosures, right? They wouldn't have to be paying 4 months worth of rent. Okay, and now they're gonna have these eviction notices on their doors. Right?
I was gonna say, if they get that 1,200 check now, that's to pay like April's.
Exactly.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
difference does that make, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, instead, what they should have done is that they should have been paying these bills for people, right?
Yeah.
And so then these companies, they're still solvent, right? Because
Right.
they're getting their payments. Okay.
Yeah.
They don't have to go into bankruptcy. They don't have to take out any sort of loans. They don't
Right.
have to do any of that, right? And the American people, they don't have to now worry about, oh shit,
Yeah.
my unemployment is about to run out. That extra $600
Oh, yeah.
that I'm getting from unemployment is about to run out. I'm about to get
Tulsi had
and I still don't have a job.
Tulsi had UBI. We said, well, we need monthly UBI for everybody for the duration of this, like what, back in March or something, right? She had legislation for it.
But then again, that's what I'm saying, is that the government has proven time and time again. We already have the Princeton study that showed that we live in an oligarchy, that we don't live in a democracy. Right. Okay. Right. That fallacy is done. Okay.
Yeah.
And we get proven time and time again how the government, the first order of business is always to bail out the big companies and the corporations, and then maybe, I guess, we'll give you guys something. So Daisy, for them to be in charge of doing a UBI, that is what makes me very nervous, and it's also not libertarian for us to be taking money from, like, redistributing wealth. I'm not saying that I agree with it or don't agree with it. I'm just saying, because they were saying the whole taxing over like 100% at when you reach a certain amount. I'm totally for that. I know that obviously before Reagan, right? Is when
before under Eisenhower, a Republican president in the late 50s, that was the tax rate.
It was 100%.
No, not 100%, 92%.
90%. Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's why I totally agree that something there needs to be a restructuring. What I'm saying is that I just don't have the faith in our government to be able to execute it.